Hello everyone, this is Chromasia. I'm a badge skinner, and today I'm going to be showing you the basics to making your very first Osu skin. Now is a great time to get into skinning, with the announcement of the new Unchanged skinning contest, paired with the announcement of skinning contests returning to twice a year. So I hope you will give it a shot. Although it can look a bit daunting, I find that making skins is an extremely rewarding and overall very fun project. I'll be going over the high-level basic steps to making a skin, roughly in an order of difficulty, because there's no real order that you have to follow to make a skin. However, starting with the easier assets might make the jump into harder assets a bit easier to swallow. So something to consider. I'll be using the latest version of Photoshop for convenience, and recommend you do too. However, there are free alternatives out there on the internet. Very first thing you're going to want to do when making your skin is sketch out some ideas. Brainstorming is the most important part of the process. Thumbnails don't need to be detailed. In fact, it's better if they aren't. You're really going to want to focus on quantity over quality at this stage in the design process. Just do quick thumbnails of whatever asset you want to start with. I'll just do a quick song select here. Sketch out roughly the shape of song select, stuff like this, and you got the carousel. You've got your leaderboard over here. And maybe you want to put like an anime girl here, stuff like that. And you know you've got your profile information here. Say you've got this space over here, you want to put an object there potentially. Maybe we'll put like a big diamond, right? And just to fill some space. And then maybe we'll have like a little drop down here for the type to search. And maybe we'll do big square buttons here. Just very quick, very basic drawings. This is all you really need to do. Just enough to get an idea for the composition and maybe what kind of direction you want to go with for your skin. Do a couple of those real quick. Don't spend more than like 2 minutes on those. If you're struggling to come up with ideas, I would highly recommend going to Pinterest. Pinterest is a great resource for finding graphic design in styles you like, and from there, literally just steal what other people are doing. Like, I guarantee all of these artists are stealing from someone else. They're stealing their ideas from somewhere else. There's nothing wrong with just lifting ideas from someone else, as long as you don't one-to-one copy their work. Totally okay. Like, maybe I want my skin to have this sort of tilted box theme, or maybe I really like this font. Maybe I really like how this anime girl is like completely shaded in blue. Or maybe I really like these diagonal sort of trapezoid-y shapes. Sorry, not trapezoid, a parallelogram. Maybe I really like these parallelogram shapes. Or the way they have this vertical split between these texts. Maybe that really calls to me, you know? Just literally lift ideas and do exactly what they did. So like, in this case, I could be like, okay, maybe I want my Osu cookie, the bottom right of the screen here, to be just like they did in this design. So I could, in my second design, I could be like, yep, I'm gonna have that there, and I'm gonna do a similar thing with the text. I want another diagonal here. We're gonna have some text here. I'll just put like some lines here to represent that these are text, and I'll just use that as a shorthand for myself. And now we have a completely different direction, and I can keep this rectangle idea going with the other assets in my skin. So if you're ever looking for ideas, very nice place to look for ideas here on Pinterest. Once you have a few ideas for your asset that you're going to want to skin, it is time to actually download a template. The template that I use has, well, the link has been kind of nuked off the internet. If you want to follow along with the template that I use, it is in my Discord right here in the Art and Skinning channel. It is pinned. You can download it. Shout out to Galvit, the creator of this template. I'm going to give that one a quick download. If you want to follow along one-to-one, you are going to need a somewhat recent version of Photoshop that supports automatic image exporting. That's something to keep in mind. I would also highly recommend making a mood board. If you're ever feeling stuck, that can be a great way to just give you a quick few ideas, solutions to some design problems you might be running into. Takes very little time and saves a whole lot of time in my experience, so definitely something worth doing. Even if you think, oh, I've got it in my head, I still think it's worth putting it down to paper, keeping it fresher on your mind, easy to recall. Definitely another reason to use Pinterest. All right, now that we have that template downloaded, what you're gonna want to do is take it and drag it into Osu. Drag it into your Osu client, and that will import your template from which you can work on. Should be labeled template skin, and you're gonna wanna open that folder. This is going to be your work folder for your entire skin. If you're using Slate, which is another template, works very much in a similar way. Just the formatting within the actual PSDs themselves is a little bit different. Slate is totally an acceptable template to use. Many great skins are made with Slate. I just am not particularly familiar with the workflow, and the one time I did try it, it felt like it was a little bit more, it gave you a little bit less control than I wanted, and then I got with this template. So this is what I'm going to be rolling with. We're going to start off with the gameplay, which is probably the most important part of any skin, in my opinion, and probably in the opinion of many Osu players. Gameplay can make or break a skin, and it's also, coincidentally, the easiest. You're going to want to open up that PSD. Real quick editor's note, because I realized I didn't actually explain this the first time I recorded this. In order to make these templates work, you have to set up automatic exporting. And in order to do that, you first need to go to Edit, Preferences, Plugins, and you need to make sure that Enable Generator is ticked on. After that, all you have to do is go to File, Generate, Image Assets, and that will enable image assets being generated for this PSD. This works on a per PSD basis, so you will have to do this for every PSD you are making automatic files from, all 3 templates. And now, every time you press Ctrl S, it will automatically generate into your skins folder a set of files that you can easily drag and copy paste into your template skin. It just makes it so much easier. It makes it so much easier to make changes to the assets that you want and understand how they're going to look in actual gameplay. Once you have that PSD open, you should see a few things. Under your layers, there should be folders for each individual asset in the gameplay field. So each part of the spinner has its own individual folder within which you should skin the object. Same thing for the pause menu. You'll have the buttons as well as the backgrounds, section fail and such. Everything in this template is split into the folders, and to use the template, all you have to do is make sure that the objects that you're placing in Photoshop align with the asset that you want to be skinning in Osu. Everything in the gameplay screen is fairly intuitive for the most part. Main things to consider: the hit circle is split into 2 parts. You've got the hit circle overlay and the hit circle. Hit circle overlay is the white border around your hit circle, and hit circle itself is the colored part of your hit circle that changes color with your combo color. Hit circle overlay gets placed directly on top of hit circle, and so those kind of work together. Something to keep in mind. Other than that, though, input overlay can be a little bit frustrating to work with. It's a bit of a finicky asset, so it might require a bit of finessing. As you can see, it's actually rotated 90 degrees to the left from how it is in gameplay, so that's something to keep in mind. I usually just go with like a very simple gradient glow here. If you are using one of those more recent versions of Photoshop, keep in mind that exporting gradients can be a little bit awkward. You have to rasterize this layer or turn it into a smart object before you export a gradient. Shout out to Adobe. We love Adobe. Please fix your shit. Other things to consider: the colored part of the scoreboard gets cut off progressively from the right as you lose HP. You might have noticed that just from playing the game. But the file itself doesn't go all the way to the left side of the screen. So you have to keep in mind that you'll have this gap on the left side of your scoreboard. You can fill that in with the background. It just won't. The part that actually ticks down when you lose HP does not touch the left-hand side. Something to keep in mind. Spinners are a slightly complicated asset. As you can see, there are actually a surprising number of parts to a spinner, all of these different files. So I would recommend going through and playing a spinner map to see when each of these pops in, what do they do, really understand those interactions before you start placing objects. You don't need to do anything too crazy with the spinner if you don't want to, but it is split into quite a few different parts, so something to look into before you start skinning your spinner. The pause screen and the fail screen actually share the same buttons. You can see they share these 3 buttons between the 2 of them. Only difference is that when you fail, you no longer have this top button, the pause continue. So whatever you do with the fail background and the pause background, these 2 files right here, you should keep in mind that the fail will not have this top button, whereas the pause screen will have it. Do not forget to skin out arrow pause when you get to that section. That is this one right here. This is basically the arrow that shows up when you press the arrow keys in the pause screen. Literally no one does that, so I would just replace this with a blank PNG like this one right here, a blank 1 pixel PNG. Although feel free to go ham if you have an idea for a particularly cool pause arrow. Just know that your work will probably never be seen by anyone, because who presses the arrow keys in the pause menu. To change the fonts, we are going to have to move to the Skin.ini, which is the text file that controls a lot of the attributes for your skin. This is like the brain of your skin, where you can change a lot of pretty fundamental parts. Off the bat, assuming you are watching this video somewhat close to when I am releasing it, you're going to want to set this version to 2.7. You can set it to just latest, but I would not recommend it, because if there are changes to the Skin.ini in the future, that could break it. It's just safer to keep it on the version that you actually skinned it for. You can give it a name, write your name. It does look a little scary because it's still a wall of text here, and trust me, it gets way scarier if you're skinning mania, but it's not too bad. There's only a few of these that you actually need to pay attention to. I will list them out right now for you and what they do, so you know what you want to change. Most important thing probably is the font section here. If you want to change the font for your combo, the font for your score, or the font for your hit circle, you're going to have to give a file path for Osu to look for to find your fonts, which are just each individual number saved as an image. I can give you a quick example of what that looks like by showing you what that looks like in my Everlasting Moment skin, which is what I won my badge for. So if you take a peep at the Skin.ini for this skin, you can see I have set the hit circle prefix to fonts urbane rounded default for my hit circle prefix. Now if we go to the fonts folder, this is how Osu actually finds folders from the Skin.ini. It goes from the main folder where your skin is. This first word before your first slash should be the name of your font folder. And then I've got another subfolder. If you've ever done programming, this kind of pathing should feel pretty familiar to you. And you could go to urbane rounded, and here you can see I have all of my numbers for my hit circles in this file with the prefix default, which is important. You need to keep that at the very end so it knows what kind of file to look for. You can also change the hit circle overlap, which tweaking this number will make your numbers either closer together or further apart, which this is an important number to touch up to make sure that your skin is looking nice and clean, making sure that every number has the appropriate amount of padding. Other than that, you can change your combo colors. Highly would recommend doing that, something thematic with the skin you're trying to make. You can change your animation frame rate. I did 60 for Everlasting Moment, but 30 is fine and probably honestly better for lower end systems. You do not need more than 30 frames per second in an Osu skin. You can also change the color of text, active and inactive, in your song select. So that would be, for example, on these tabs here on the right side on your song carousel here, you can change what color the font shows up as when you click on it and when it is unclicked. You can also change your slider border alongside your combo colors and your track override, which is like the body of your slider. You can change those colors. They're just listed as RGB values, the same way that your combo colors are. I'd highly recommend just using like a color picker. You can use Google. That's what I use. I usually just Google color picker, like a color picker. And then I can pick a color that I think looks nice, like this one. This is kind of a nice light blue. If you are a Mania skinner, I'm sorry, because the Skin.ini gets way more complicated when you skin Mania, and I don't honestly have enough expertise in skinning Mania to confidently give a tutorial on how the Mania Skin.ini section works. If you use Slate, a lot of this has already been done for you. Using Slate will just make your life so much easier for this, though. I would highly recommend using Slate if you are a Mania skinner. Moving on from the Skin.ini, the next screen that you're going to want to touch is the ranking panel. That is the next easiest one to skin. The ranking panel is basically your scorecard when you finish a play. The ranking panel is barely intuitive. There are a few frustrations with the ranking panel, but for the most part, it all goes on one file, which makes it a lot easier than the next screen that I'm going to talk about, the song select. There are a few funky parts, but if you just want a functional ranking panel, you can pretty much put it all on the ranking panel file, this one right here. In order to see the bottom half of the ranking panel in this template, you first have to turn off the RP header right here, and that should show you the entire thing. Ranking panel, which is where you're going to be spending most of your time here, extends from this corner here all the way down to the bottom right here, and you can actually extend it a little bit further if you want, but you shouldn't really need to. So that is where you're going to be doing most of your work. The big troubles you're going to have to encounter here in the ranking panel that make it a little bit more frustrating to skin is finding a way to display your beatmap ranking or your profile info in a way that looks nice. And you're also going to have to contend with the fact that your watch replay and retry buttons that show up in the bottom right when you've finished a play will change spots depending on if you are navigating from the main menu, like on the leaderboard, or if you've just finished a play. So let me show you what I mean. I have a really short map that I usually test my skins on, this one. If you navigate to a play from song select, you can see that the watch replay, ignore the Wojak. You can see that the watch replay button is all the way up here. But if I go through and I play this map, just put on double time and hidden, play through the map real quick. I know, I'm very impressive. You could see now that the watch replay button has gone to the bottom and retry is now at the top of these two buttons. The fact that those are both slightly translucent and switch positions on the score screen can make these assets a little bit frustrating to skin. Something to keep in mind, something you're gonna have to watch out for when you put assets in the bottom right of your ranking panel. Other than that, the only other real problem that you're going to encounter on this screen is the forced, slightly transparent black bar up at the top. Some skinners find this more frustrating than others. Some people just ignore that this is here and just do a design from there on down. But basically what makes this frustrating is that there is a slight gap, a very slight gap here of just a few pixels between where this transparent bar ends and where you can start skinning on the ranking panel file, because it starts from this top right corner here. So you've got this little gap that you need to fill. And filling that can be a little bit frustrating. Some people just ignore it and focus on their design down here. There are ways to fill it in that are a little bit jank, but for the most part, you won't notice in gameplay. But I won't be going through the specifics. If you want the specifics on how to do a particular effect, you can ask me on stream. I stream over at twitch.tv/Chromasia_ every day, pretty much, somewhere around 10 a.m. Central Time. Or you can ask where I get all of my advice in the Skinship Discord. This is where a lot of Osu's best skinners just kind of hang out in this Discord. Amazing resource if you want advice or if you want to know how to do a particular effect. And now we get to the scariest of all assets. There's a reason I left this one for last, because it is definitely, in my opinion, the hardest asset to skin. There's some debate about that. I think it is by far the hardest, though, for a multitude of reasons. The first of which is that any pre-existing template for this asset is already outdated. Because just last year, there was an update to skinning, actually, that added three more very important assets to song select. You can look into how to skin the old method way if you want to use the template and the automatically exporting assets. That is fine. It is just going to be a bit more frustrating, and I would highly recommend checking out the Skinship website for advice and tutorials on how to skin song selection, because this asset is complicated with a lot of weird quirks to it. What I would recommend doing is making your own sort of work file to design your song select from, and then splitting it up when you're done. It's going to be very important to keep your folders organized, your layers organized, to make it easier on you when you go to split up your skin. Makes it so much easier. For this part, I will show you a bit from the skin I'm working on for the current contest. Dimensions of this file are 2732 by 1537. Those are probably going to be the dimensions you're going to want to use. For skinning this asset, you're going to want some sort of guide on where the objects are on the screen. Just a quick image of a screenshot of song select should be good enough, although you might need to do a bit of tweaking and pushing things around when it comes to your profile information, because there's some pixel perfect stuff that is frequently required for the effects you can do on your profile. What makes song select in particular very frustrating to skin is that it's actually split up into multiple layers, as opposed to ranking panel, which was mostly just done on one layer. In your song selection, you are going to have to be working on your song select bottom, which is the bottom row here, your song select top, which is the top row, and you're going to have to be working on selection mode, which is the background texture for the mode select button. Like, let's say I wanted to switch to playing taiko. This button has a texture, and for pretty much every skin, that texture is like this big. Fun fact. It is the entire right side of the screen. Everything from this point all the way up to the top right of the screen can be skinned onto selection mode. This system used to be way more frustrating when you couldn't skin song select bottom and song select top, which are the black bars that show up behind your buttons and your profile information in the default skin. These black bars with the blue lines, that is song select top and song select bottom. The addition of those assets to the list of skinnable assets solved a lot of problems, but it has not solved all of them. There are two particular pain points where you are still going to need to use selection mode to cover up parts of the screen. And so that's the big trick for song select, the big part that makes it complicated. Those two parts are the Osu cookie, which is the name for this region over here, over the Osu logo, and these tabs at the top, specifically the group and the sort text here. You can't actually skin over these dropdowns. You kind of just have to deal with that. Also, if you want to put anything above performance and accuracy and level, or have an overlay over your profile information, like a lot of skins do, my skins have this, or if you are familiar with, some of you may be familiar with this skin, you can see that there are effects over the user profile. You can only do this by skinning it onto selection mode, because selection mode is on a higher layer than your profile information, whereas song select bottom and song select top are below that kind of information. So if you need a quick visual on what this might look like, so it's a little bit easier to understand, you can think of it as, let's say you've got a bottom layer here. The bottom layer on the song select sandwich is your song select bottom and song select top. The middle layer here, this would be the stuff that Osu renders automatically. So your cookie here, the text up here, and the tabs. The tabs are another thing that's going to be important to cover with your selection mode. Your profile information, and that's about it. And then here is your selection mode layer that will overlay over top everything you put underneath it. So you can use that to hide anything on the green layer and the red layer. So let me quickly label these so that you can have like an image to screenshot mayhaps. Beyond that, because believe it or not, this is not where the frustrations end with this file, you also have to keep in mind that with song select top and only song select top, I do not know why this is the case. It is probably something to do with support for multiple resolutions within Osu. Any pixel that hits the far right, the rightmost edge of song select top will get repeated to the left and under by a few pixels. Not by a few pixels, by many pixels. So let's say you have a red line that runs along the right side of your song select top file. Osu will then render a big rectangle, basically like this, out and under song select top. Now the fact that that goes under song select top is a blessing, because that means if you have a completely opaque song select top that's just like a rectangle up here the way that it is normally, you won't notice anything, because the pixels that are getting repeated just go underneath the existing asset. So really, when you are skinning your song select, be really mindful about which layer you want to put your objects on and how you're going to cut it up. So like I know all of these circles I'm going to want to put on the Osu cookie. So I'm going to need to keep it in mind that when I cut this up, when I cut up this work file, I'm going to have to put this part of the screen onto selection mode. Some other information that's going to be really important for skinning this menu. The tabs up here for sorting have forced text rendered onto them. You can't really get rid of this. The best you can do is hide it. And so that can make this asset a little bit frustrating to skin. The way pretty much everyone gets around that is by using selection mode and covering up the buttons, but leaving, like, say, a little circle right here in a corner that will be like a little hole in your selection mode, which gives you a little window onto the tab that's hiding underneath to show when you've clicked it. Do not forget to skin this little tab here. This is a new asset that got added when they added Song Select Top and Song Select Bottom. You can now skin this button here. Very fun. The buttons are my personal least favorite part of skinning Song Select because they are always frustrating to export. The way each button works, and I think it'll be made a little bit clearer by this little diagram I have on my screen here. Each button has an anchor point in the bottom left-hand corner where it starts, where the file starts. And this file can be as wide and as tall as you want, which means you can have buttons that overlap into other buttons and stuff like that, which is why you can skin everything onto selection mode. The actual hitboxes of the buttons themselves are only determined by each button's respective over file. So for example, that would be the ones with the over suffix at the very end of their file name. And those will determine the hitboxes of your button, and also are the files that show up when you hover over a button. For example, when I hover over the select button here, basically what happens is mods button over file pops in whenever you hover over it, whenever you hover over the hitbox. These hitboxes have an order of priority to them, which will handle when you are hovering over the hitboxes of multiple buttons at the same time. And you can do a few cool effects with that. So the order for the buttons is mode, mods, options, and random. This is the order of priority for the buttons. And you can use that to extend, for example, the mods button to the right. If you wanted a bigger hitbox for your mods at the expense of a slightly smaller hitbox for random here. And so what you can do with that is start stacking hitboxes to create unique button layouts like you'll see in some skins. Each of these is a little bit different. I would recommend just looking at a skin you think has a cool button layout and stealing exactly what they did, because it can be, if you're making your first skin, it can be frustrating to try and figure out how these actually interact, and you'll be like fussing around with overlays and stuff when someone has probably already done the work for you and is going to do it better anyway, and it's going to be a good learning experience, and like through copying you will come to understand how these buttons actually interact. So if you want to do fancy buttons, just steal an idea from someone else who's already figured this out. That's what I did, and it actually taught me a lot. It's what I would recommend. But if you want to be special, this is the order of priority. And beyond that, the only remaining hard part for song select is the mode select, like the actual like game mode selecting screen, otherwise known as Mode Fruits Medium. Why is it called Mode Fruits Medium? I have no idea. But basically that is this menu that pops up when you click on the mode select thing. This menu shows up behind Song Select Top and Song Select Bottom. Unfortunately, you can't do anything about the text that's rendered here, and you can't do anything about the fact that it hovers purple. You kind of just have to deal with that in your design. It is what it is. Not like many people really open this menu for that long and look at it, so it's not really a big deal, just a minor frustration. And that should be pretty much everything for the basics of skinning. Once you've gotten all of that stuff down on your work file, you can start chopping things up, put everything onto selection mode, or Song Select Bottom, or Song Select Top, depending on where it is on the screen and what layer you want it to be on. For the vast majority of skins, that's just going to mean that your top left corner is your selection mode with a bit of transparent boundary over here to prevent you from getting the repeating pixel. The bottom right is going to be your song select bottom. Be careful to not make this file too tall, because song select bottom has the extra functionality of preventing you from clicking on it, which can be frustrating when you're skinning. So you're going to want to keep that file as short as possible. You could see I'm clicking here down on this tab. I'm giving it a good click, but because song select bottom has an overlapping hitbox here, I actually cannot click on it, and I have to go up a little bit to above song select bottom on this skin. If you need a quick an even easier visual for what this looks like, this is the song select bottom on Full Moon Night. This is the song select top. This is the top right corner, and this is the song select mode, which is where you can see most of the body of the skin is actually skinned on this. So you could think of it as just like, this is most of the skin. Song select top has the top left, and song select bottom goes underneath the bottom here, like that, you know? Kind of a little scuffed visual, but that is how those layers interact. That was a basic overview of all of the steps that are required for skinning. I did not touch on every aspect of skinning. There are absolutely other assets that you will need to skin. If you want an overview of every skinnable file in Osu, there is a resource for that on Skinship. It is a detailed list of every skinnable object in the game. If you ever need to look up the specifics for an interaction or make sure you're not forgetting an asset, this is a comprehensive list of every skinnable asset in the game. It looks scarier than it is. It's actually very useful. I would definitely recommend keeping this open while skinning in case you ever want to go back and check how something works. Specifically, things like origin point are very important, or recommended sizes, very useful information. It also comes with all of the Skin.ini information for what each setting in here actually does, if you are ever curious. Hopefully that made the various screens of Osu skinning a little bit clearer for you. I do hope you give it a shot. Now's a fantastic time. I hope to see each and every one of you who have watched this making a skin for the current contest, because the current contest is honestly a great opportunity for new skinners to get into skinning. There is no real theme. You're just allowed to do whatever you want for this contest. So any kind of skin you want, it's a viable entry for this contest. There's no reason not to join. Thank you for watching this video. If you found this helpful, I would appreciate it if you dropped a sub and a like. Mayhaps a comment if you're feeling particularly generous. You can catch me pretty much every day at where I stream like skinning, I stream mapping, I stream playing the game, we do content, do like multi-lobbies, you know, all sorts of fun stuff. You can feel free to catch me there at twitch.tv/Chromasia_. And thanks for watching.